Richard Burton, I read in the papers that a couple of years or so ago you had a drink problem, your career was somewhat slipping, but now everything's going fine for you. Is that so, and why?
Yes, well, once you have a drink problem, you always have one. Once an alcoholic, always an alcoholic. But, and I'm not quite sure whether I am or not, but I think I'm within striking distance of being one. But certainly I stopped drinking about 2 years ago, and I decided that to discipline myself and to indeed show the people who were concerned in my business that I actually wasn't a falling down drunk, decided to go back on the stage, and very luckily for me, Tony Perkins was doing Equus in New York, and his contract was coming to an end. So instead of going through the labor of rehearsals and doing a long tour out of town and then coming in to New York or to London, wherever you are, I was able to step straight into the slot he left for me, and I was on for about 3 months, and that was the turning point, as it were. And of course I'd stopped drinking some time before, but I was still unsure as to whether I'd make it on the stage, because I hadn't been on the stage for 12 years, the last job being Hamlet, and correspondingly younger. So I was rather apprehensive. And I literally counted the number of performances we had left after the opening night, which was a great success, and everybody was very flattering. And then I did a film which was not very good, but then I did the film of Equus, which is very good, so I understand.
But you say just now you don't think you were an alcoholic, you're not sure, but I have read in the papers too that you said you were on 3 bottles of the hard stuff, and one doctor said if you go on like this, you've got 2 weeks to live. So you must have been very bad.
Oh, yes, yes, but that would have been considered. I was into my 3rd bottle a day, so a friend of mine told me. Being into my 3rd bottle, I wasn't aware of the fact that I was into it. But he told me so, and I was somewhat surprised. And this same friend, he's actually here, said, would you have a blood test? And they took a blood test, and it was, of course, I was I was anonymous in the blood test. And they said, this person, if he keeps on as he's going, because they'd written an account of what my behavior was, if he goes on as he is, we'll have approximately 2 weeks to live, which I found very intriguing. I was so sloshed when they told me anyway. So I said, well, that gives me 3 days to do, you know, that kind of mock heroics went on. But I did put myself into hospital, and though I could have come out in a week, I enjoyed the hospital somewhat. Enjoyed is hardly the word. I became so fascinated by the other people who were genuinely suffering from cirrhosis of the liver that I stayed in the hospital, and I didn't have anything to do anyway, and became a sort of lay doctor, if there is such a thing, and went visiting these people, and it really was horrifying. And I suggest that anybody who does have a drinking problem, as they euphemistically put it nowadays, who is in fact an alcoholic, goes to visit somebody who has terminal cirrhosis of the liver. It's an unbelievable sight.
Do you know what caused you to drink in the first place?
Well, I'm a Welshman, and I think most Celts, Irishmen, Scots, Welsh, and the English, very quietly too, are not far behind. I think we're all. I think it's a human frailty. There is not.
You say, you're quoted as saying, acting is somehow shameful for a man to do. It isn't natural to put on makeup and wear costumes and say someone else's lines. So you drink to overcome the shame. Is that right?
Oh, no, that's a misquote. Oh, or at least I might have said it, but I probably was on the 4th bottle that day when I said it. No, I think, no, that's no excuse for drinking at all. No, I think that I was simply a heavy drinker who really enjoyed it and went too far.
So if that quote is wrong, you have in fact never doubted that you chose the right profession?
I felt slightly uneasy at the beginning because I became an actor by accident. It wasn't vocational. And I was slightly uneasy at my immediate success when I was told by other actors, contemporaries and famous senior actors like Laurence Olivier or Gielgud or Alec Guinness, about the fact that they wanted to be actors since the age of 8 or 6 or whatever it was, and they were forever dressing up when they were kids. I had none of that, and I became an actor, as I say, purely by accident. So I felt slightly uneasy at my easy success, and indeed thought it was easy when I was very young, and couldn't think what all the fuss was about. And then it got increasingly more demanding as I became better known and carried the players on my shoulders. And indeed, eventually I became quite nervous, and still am. So I grew up in the business, as it were.
You told me just now that you hadn't appeared on the stage for some time before you, before you did Equus, 10 or 12 years, I think. Was that a deliberate decision not to appear on the stage?
No, actually, I was absolutely astounded that it had been so long. I assumed that I remember saying, somebody said, "How long is it since you've been on the stage?" And I said, "Oh, about 4 or 5 years." And a friend of mine who was standing by said, "No, it's 10. And I said, "Really, is it?" And we worked it out, and it was. The time flies so fast, I think, in your 30s and 40s, that you can't believe that such and such a thing happened 10 years ago. It seems like yesterday.
Of course, during that time when you weren't on the stage, you were making movies for a great deal of money. Some of them were good movies, and some of them, I think you'd admit, were bad movies. Do you regret any of that time?
No. Je ne regrette rien, as Piaf used to sing. I don't, since I can't change it, I don't regret it. I do hope that in my madness, I had about 5 years, I think, of being pretty irresponsible, except perhaps about my children. I didn't hurt anybody, but I certainly didn't mean to. No, I don't regret it. I think it was necessary for me to become what I am now at the age of 52.
And what about the various marriages and all the love affairs one read about? Was that inevitable too, do you think?
I don't know whether it was inevitable, but they happened. At least, I don't know about the love affairs, but the marriages happened. And as I say, one can't change it. And I, in a sense, wouldn't have missed my life for anything. I think I've led the most extraordinarily lucky life. After all, I come from a very poor background. And almost immediately, I struck lucky with everything. I mean, the war came at the right time for me. Oxford came at the right time. The theatre came at the right time. One often thinks, of course, that what would have happened if I had not accidentally become an actor, what would I have become? And I really don't know. I suppose the chances are that I would have possibly gone down the mines, as most of my brothers did, all my brothers except one, and my father, my ancestors, and possibly become a miner's agent because I'm very glib, and possibly become an MP as one of my uncles did, and possibly have even got a knighthood, which he did, if you know what I mean.
Do you feel a compulsion to remain in the public eye?
No, I rather enjoy being famous because you get the best seat in restaurants and you get immediate bookings on planes and stuff like that. I do not like crowds. In fact, over the years, I've developed a genuine fear of masses of people. I can't go, for instance, to see Wales play England at Twickenham anymore, much as I'd love to, because I've become, I don't know what the word is, an agoraphobic or something. The crowds really, I suppose because over the years, one's had crank letters saying, "I'm going to throw acid in your face," or whatever it is. Perhaps not that, but anyway, I simply don't like them. And I very rarely go out, and indeed in the last 20 years, have very rarely gone out except when commanded to, in a sense, like a Royal Command performance or something like that. Last Saturday night, for instance, I went out for the first time in my life in London to a discotheque. And people absolutely stopped dead. I mean, they were absolutely astounded to see this hermit, which in effect I am, appear at wherever it was, wherever the nightclub was.
Is it true that you smoke between 60 and 100 cigarettes a day?
I would say so, yes, especially when I work.
Are you not afraid, with your voice being one of your great assets, of lung cancer?
Yes, and my next assignment is to give up smoking. Now, I did try. We were in Antigua, Susan and I, for a month. And I thought, well, here I am now. I've completely mastered the drinking habit. So now can I master the smoking habit? So I gave up smoking. And I quit cold turkey, as the Americans say. No sort of tapering off, but immediate. For 5 days. And the extraordinary thing is about that the nicotine must be so deep in me that I don't remember the 5 days. During that time, we bought a house, don't remember anything. Apparently I was enormously rude to people, exactly like an alcoholic who has had a blackout and is told the next day what terrible things he said and done. Well, that happened to me when I gave up the cigarettes, and Susan tells me that she heaved, I mean, a mental sigh of immense relief when I, to celebrate the fact that we'd acquired this house on St. David's Day, it was the Welsh day. I smoked a cigarette, and then when I'd had about 10, she told me all the things I'd done for the previous 5 days. I was absolutely astounded. So obviously I have to give it up, because, as you say, an actor without a voice is in bad trouble. And who wants to die of that horrible lung cancer anyway? But I think it will have to be a tapering off job because it's so deeply ingrained.
Richard Burton, you're rich enough now and famous enough now to do in the future whatever you want to do. Do you see your life going on much as it's gone on in the past, or do you see something quite new?
No, I think as much as in the past. Again, the avoidance of writing is coming into it. I'm going to do 2 more films, for instance, after this one, and then in August I start rehearsing and eventually playing Lear in Canada and eventually in New York, and if successful we'll stay in it for 6 months. I don't think anybody can play consecutive Lears for much longer without dying of old age.
What about Lear in England?
Well, you chaps, why don't you talk to the Chancellor of the Exchequer, or whoever it is, or the tax people, and tell them to let me in for 6 months and I'll come and play it in England. But it's not fair to the producers to come in. I was hoping, for instance, to do it at the Prospect Theatre at the Old Vic, and for 3 months, and then take the whole thing to the States, hopefully the thing being successful. But there's a new law by American Equity which means you can't do that. So my only chance of playing in England has gone, I think, for a long time. Unless I come home for good, which we're thinking about. Everybody else is leaving, of course, and very perversely we're now thinking we're coming home.
Richard Burton, thank you very much.
Thank you.